Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Laura. Thank you so much for stopping by. On this channel, I talk about real estate investing, running a business, and lifestyle. And today's topic is going to be what I learned from my first set of reviews as an Airbnb host. This video is going to cover four main topics. The first is some background on how Airbnb reviews work. The second is what I got for my first set of reviews. Third is how I responded to those. And then lastly, I'm going to wrap this all up with what this means for me and my future hosting career, as well as what it could mean for you if this is a path that you're interested in going down. Before I get into today's main topic, I want to give you a little bit of background as to my journey. I listed this first listing, which I'm actually sitting in mid-June of 2022, and it is a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment in the DC metro area. I received 7 total bookings that go through September, and 3 of those bookings happened during the first week. So this video is based on those first set of viewings. The first topic that I wanted to talk about is how reviews on Airbnb work. You might be familiar with the 5-star rating system where 1 is the worst and 5 is the best. Overall, Airbnb wants its host to be at about a 4.8 or above. Each guest that stays doesn't leave a single review with a rating on it. They're actually leaving reviews on 6 different categories: cleanliness, accuracy, value, communication, check-in, location. So cleanliness, that should be obvious. Accuracy, how does the actual property compare to the photos and to the description that was on Airbnb? Value, do they feel they got their money's worth? Communication, how responsive was the host when the guests asked any questions? Check-in, how easy was that process for the guests to gain access to the property? And then location, how is the neighborhood? Is it close to amenities? Is it safe? So each guest is ranking each of those categories from 1 to 5 stars, and then Airbnb will add all of those up and take an average and give the host a rating based on that calculation. Ratings are incredibly important on Airbnb for a few reasons. The first is that ratings determine where a listing will show up in Airbnb's search engine. Is it one of the first properties listed, or is it buried behind a few pages? So the higher rating that a place has, the higher up in the actual search that listing will appear. So higher rating is really important from that perspective because it makes it easier for guests to find that property. The second is that guests will determine whether or not they pick a place to stay based on that host rating. So if property has, a really low rating, they're not going to choose to stay there because that might mean that they could have a negative experience during their stay. A rating for a property and a host is incredibly important. And like I said previously, as a host, you want your star rating to be 4.8 or higher. Now, the other thing to mention about Airbnb's ratings is that guests will rate on those 6 categories, right, from 1 to 5, but they can also leave text. They can describe their stay, and they can do that in a public review, and then they can also leave a private note for a host. My guest said in his public review that the place was cozy, it was beautifully decorated, and that it was in a great neighborhood. And then privately said that the mattresses were too firm and that it wasn't convenient to not have a television in the living room. I'll show you in some B-roll what the layout looks like so you can see that there is no natural place to have a television in this property because there aren't that many continuous walls. So there is no wall against which I could put the couch where it would be directly across from the television. It's just an awkward space. So we chose to put TVs in the bedrooms rather than in the living room. So that's what that guest said. Now, what the guest rated his stay as, remember there are those 6 categories. In 4 of the 6, he rated it 5 stars, but in 2 of those, he rated it a 4. And for some reason, the way that Airbnb does math, they gave me an overall score of a 4, even though it should be about a 4.7 or a 4.8 if they're taking a true average of everything that guest rated. That for me was a little bit devastating because you want to be as close to a 5-star host as humanly possible given how important the ratings are. So I did 3 key things based on that very first guest review. The first was I reached out to this mentorship group that I'm a part of. It's called Host Camp, and it's run by Rob Built, who is a creator here on YouTube. I let them know what the guests said, the feedback, and asked for any advice. And one person suggested I get pillow tops. So that was the next thing I did. I bought some pillow tops for the mattresses on Amazon, and I also bought a console table. Those are built to, they're really like slim and long, and they are meant to go behind a couch. And because of the layout of this space, like I can't fit a TV stand in here. So I got a console table, and once it arrives, I'll put it together, but I'll move one of the TVs from the bedroom into the living room to see if that makes any difference for the next guest. So the first thing I did was I reached out to the group to get some advice. The second thing I did was to buy those things in direct response to the guest feedback. And then the third thing I did, which I think is the most important thing, was that I reached out to the next guest who was coming really soon and let him know that based on the feedback that I got, that the mattresses were firm and that there was no TV in the living room, that I had bought a pillow top for the mattresses and a console table, but those were going to be about a week away from me putting them in, so they wouldn't impact this guest stay, but to let me know if either of those were a significant problem for him so that I could then have the opportunity to address it during his stay. So I would have gone to just like Home Goods or somewhere else where I could have bought those things and then returned what I got on Amazon if need be. The next guest, he was fantastic. His comments were, in his rating, were very similar to the first guest, that the place was beautifully decorated and it was close to DC. He really enjoyed his stay. And then in his private note said that the pillow tops for the mattresses would be a good idea, which really validated a couple of things. It validated me buying them, and it really validated me reaching out to him proactively to let him know what to expect. As a result, he gave me a 5-star rating across the board, which was hooray. Such a relief, and it was a validation that reaching out to him to let him know was the right thing for me to do. What does my experience mean for me as I continue my journey, and then potentially for you if this is the path that you're walking down? Well, first, I think it means that it's really important to adopt and maintain a growth and learning mindset, which means, you know, you're constantly improving, looking for areas that could be made better. And I'm not talking drastic changes, but small changes that you can make to improve guest experience, to ensure that they have a 5-star experience when they stay with you. It can be really tempting to get sad or defeated or to bury your head in the sand when someone gives you feedback that you may not want to hear. But if you do that, that's really a lost opportunity. So the first tip, and the thing that I am doing, is just to constantly maintain a growth and a learning mindset. The second thing would be to implement systems that help you gather feedback from your guests immediately so that you can act on it right away. I've got automated messaging that I set up through Guesty. I have set up messages that go to my guests when they book, right before they check in, a day after they have checked in, to see if everything is okay and if there's anything that they need from me, and then right before they check out to make sure that they follow the checkout instructions. Having that system in place means that, you know, I'm communicating consistently with my guests. They know that I'm available and that my purpose is to help them enjoy their stay. And then the third tip that I would leave you with, and that I'm constantly going to employ myself, is to just take action, be in action. Anything that I can do to make my Airbnb properties the best that they can be is something I'm going to do. My goal is to be in the top 10% in any market where I've got an Airbnb listing. And so that means that, like, I'm going to have to constantly be looking for ways that I can improve so that it is rated really highly by guests and then recognized by Airbnb. Okay, well, that's it for today's video. I really hope that this was helpful for you. Please let me know in the comments if there are any topics that you'd like to learn about. I'd be happy to cover them. Thank you so much for stopping by. See you next time.